Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you so much for joining. What we're talking about, messages from the other side, divine messages from God, or whatever you feel comfortable calling it, your higher self, God, Jesus, the angels. I know a lot of people call it different things. And one thing I've come to realize is that no matter what it is, it's about your intention. If you have positive intention and you cry out for help, whatever that divine force is answers your cry for help. And I think that's the important thing to remember, is that a lot of times we kind of get caught up in the man-made religions and things like that, and we think things have to be done by a way that's prescribed by man. And it doesn't seem to work that way on the higher levels, from my experience anyway. So a while back I did a video. Hey, boom boom, Casey Cat, I'm glad you made it. Kevin T, Go Kart Bob, Jose, thanks for being here. I'm hoping to get some people from across the pond. I try to do a little bit earlier because typically I do it late and it's like in the middle of the night and they're all like, what the heck, you know? We like to watch you live too. Anyway, they usually get it the next morning, but they don't get to join in on the chat or whatever. So this is all about divine messages. And a while back I presented, one of my viewers, Nathan Sanders, had a YouTube page that I shared and I talked about several times. In fact, in one video I really got into the whole messages from the other side message. And I have that link in the description below, as well as the links to this clip, these clips I'm about to play from Nathan Sanders, because he just picked up a podcast, which I'm totally excited about watching it. And it's going to be, I believe, every Sunday. It's going to be a weekly podcast, but you can watch it on YouTube. And then I hope to have Nathan on the program to discuss, you know, his experience there. And Jessica Thompson, thanks for being here. The Reader, appreciate you guys being here. So in that previous broadcast, in case you missed it, because I didn't have quite as many subscribers back then, I had an instance where when I first realized the Mandela effect was happening, I really started questioning everything about reality. And you know, of course, you guys were with me when I went through the whole Law of One information and information about Dolores Cannon, and there's a lot of great information. I've been on this roller coaster ride of trying to really figure out what life's all about, you know, and figure out why we're here, what we're doing, do we have any help. And one of the things that I believe the veil is thinning between this world and a higher world, and I believe that's why we're seeing a lot of synchronicities. You know, when you notice the clock has 333 or 1111, it's sort of a road map or a road sign to let you know you're on the right track and things like that. And so one of the things that also happens is with music. And you know, when I first woke up to the fact that the Mandela effect was actually happening, for those who don't think the Mandela effect's happening, it took me over a year, so don't think I just hopped on board with some kind of conspiracy theory and was like, yeah, I remember that, and wasn't sure about it. I totally don't trust my memory. It took me over a year to realize it was really happening. It was when somebody brought up the Lion and the Lamb scripture, and it was on March 22nd, which is going to come up. Remember that date, March 22nd of 2017, because that's going to actually come up later in the broadcast. So 3/22 of 2017, which was actually a week and a day before my birthday that it happened. It was actually the spring equinox, however you pronounce it. And so that very night I was outside and the clouds were all out there, and I'm like wondering what the heck is going on, you know, as you do when you realize the Mandela effect's really happening. And I was seeing And I kid you not, you guys know of pareidolia, when you look at clouds and you see different pictures and images in them and things like that. Oh, Scott Harrison, glad you made it, man. One of the reasons I got in early is just so my friends across the pond could join in. Hopefully, Diane hops in here too. So I went outside. I'm looking at the clouds. Guess what I see? And I kid you not, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm just kind of wondering about the Mandela effect and wondering what it all means and all that. And I look up at the clouds, and everywhere I look, I see a lion or a lamb. I kid you not. I'm not joking here. That just made me even further into this rabbit hole of what the heck's going on? How am I seeing lions and lambs everywhere in the clouds? It was like I was receiving some divine message from a higher source. A few days after that, I'm up at Quick Trip, up at the gas station. My daughter runs in, and I'm wondering, by this time this happened, I was wondering why other people weren't seeing it. I'm like, why don't other people see it's happening? Because I just assumed it would be all over the news. I assumed that I would go up to people and start, you know, telling them about things, and at some point, uh, they would, get it. But people weren't getting it. And that just made the phenomenon that much stranger, that people weren't seeing it happen. I'm like, what the heck's going on? So anyway, my daughter runs into the Quick Trip, and an old 80s rock sung by Whitesnake comes on. Here I go again. Anyway, while I'm thinking about all this, about how it seems like no one else was seeing this stuff, or if they did see it, they were sort of weren't affected by it. They were just kind of blew it off or changed the subject. And I'm like, what the heck? So anyway, that song comes on, and I like that song, so I just turned up the radio, and then the lyrics start to play. I don't know where I'm going, but I sure know where I've been, hanging on the promises and the songs of yesterday, which I'm doing right there. I'm like listening and hanging on to the song of the 80s that I loved. And I made up my mind, I'm not wasting no more time. But here I go again. Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. And by the time it got to the end of the chorus, I was actually bawling because I knew this song didn't come on by accident, and it was a complete message from somewhere. I wasn't even sure where, but I knew. It was almost like back when I was in church and you feel the Holy Spirit in church. And, you know, I was encompassed by this peace and these tingles all throughout my body, and it was just a really supernatural event for me. And so anyway, that's when I realized that when you're in the moment, when you're paying attention, like with the clouds or with the song that came on the radio, you can get divine messages, if you will. And it's so funny that I've been going through, of course, my normal issues in life, but I had a huge issue pop up on the radar yesterday. And the guest I'm going to be playing here, I'm not going to sing the song, Jose. Get a copyright strike. No, I'm just kidding. I won't, but I'm not going to sing it. I'll probably start crying anyway. I'm a big baby these days. So, anyway, something big popped up on the radar in my life. I don't really want to get into specifics about it, but um, when I had heard, when I first came across the guy I'm going to be playing for you, Nathan Sanders, he had had a near-death experience, and then came across the Mandela effect and started getting messages through the Pandora's music app. He'd hit the random, he'd ask a question in his mind, and the being that he met during his near-death experience would respond with a song to answer the question he was asking this being in his mind. I know how off the wall it sounds, but when you go and he actually has Pandora's Box Facebook group, Pandora's Music Box. Nathan Sanders, if you put that in there, you'll bring it up. I just had to re-find it. The other day I started reading through it again and was just amazed at the responses he was getting. And, I was raised in church, so I know what a lot of people are going to say. It's demons or whatever, but if you look at the message and use your intuition to judge how you feel about what's being said, then and I would say just always trust your intuition. We've been lied to a lot, and the church is no exception about some of the things and the message of Jesus that they've twisted a lot of his message around. And I've covered that all in the past, so I don't really want to make a big deal about that right now. But just trust your intuition. Your gut feeling is your connection to higher source. And that's why you have to be in the moment, because if you're dwelling on the past, worrying about the future, you're not in the moment. And so when this new issue popped on the radar for me, um, I immediately recognized it for what it was. Of course, I was shocked. I was, hurt. I was angry, just like you would be. Those initial thoughts came to mind. But then I remember when we went over the Law of One material, and they talked about those things that come along outside of the norm in your life are catalysts. Catalysts to push you one way or the other, to get you, I hate to say it, off the fence about something. To make you not lukewarm. You know how God says, "I'll spit you out of my mouth if you're lukewarm." Be hot or cold. Well, that's sort of the thinking involved with this. Catalysts come along. You can either take that catalyst and become bitter and angry and sad and depressed and all these things with your life, or you can take it and sort of try to separate yourself from what's happening and try to rise above it. See what you can learn from the situation. Take it as a challenge that life's thrown at you, and and then keep on trucking. You know what I mean? And it's so funny because right as I was thinking about doing the show, and I wanted to bring up the fact that Nathan Sanders, he's starting his podcast, and he does this. He calls it the Cosmic DJ, where he asks a question and then hits the random button on the Pandora's music box, and it gives this higher divine being gives him an answer through this app. And like I said, I know it sounds crazy, but what kind of control did I have over what song played on the radio, or the feeling that came with it? And it's like a synchronicity when you notice the clock and you get the feeling with it. And that's how people say it's just random. It's just coincidental that you looked at the clock at 11:11. I'm like, no, it's not really like that. It's like you're sitting in a waiting room, right? And you look around the waiting room, no one's looking at you. They're all like kind of off doing their thing on their phone, talking to each other or whatever, but no one's looking at you. But when you get a synchronicity, it's like you looked around the waiting room and caught eyes with somebody. And that's completely different than when you look around, you don't even really think about it. But when you catch eyes with somebody, it sort of pulls you back to the moment. And that's how synchronicity is to me. It's like you look at the clock and it's looking back at you. You know what I mean? So it's just more than a coincidental thing. There's a feeling that accompanies it. And I think that's important. So while I was getting ready for the show, and I've been planning this for a few days. I've had a sore throat and stuff, but I was going to present Nathan Sanders stuff. And anyway, I had this big thing pop on the radar yesterday, and I'm like, what a perfect time, because I've played with the music box before, and I've gotten results, but sometimes it seems like it could have been an evil force responding. So I've kind of stayed away from it, and I found out through the Law of One the reason for that is when you're really seeking an answer about something, it works great. But as soon as you start trying to prove it, and your intention changes from really wanting to know something to just trying to prove it for someone else and things like that, then you open yourself up to get messages from a, a malevolent source instead of a benevolent source, because now your intentions aren't right. Your heart's not pure about wanting a question answered. So perfect time today. I'm about to do this show. I wasn't doing it to prove it to anyone else, but I had this thing happen in my life, a huge thing, and I just wanted to see what I should do about it, you know? So I hit the random button, and guess what comes up? A song called Move Along by the All American Rejects. Now, I don't have any specific categories or anything set. I just hit, random, and it could have given me any song it wanted to. And the basic premise of the song is, when all you got to keep is strong, move along, like I know you do. And even when your hope is gone, move along, just to make it through, move along, move along. And I had already had this thought to keep on trucking in my mind, and it was just the confirmation on how I should handle this, not let it get me down, see what I can learn from the situation, and use it as a test to see if I can continue to love. Because, if you get ripped off from somebody, you can either, you know, go and try to rip them back off, or go key their car. I mean, there's negative ways to respond, but the toughest thing to do is to love them through them hurting you, however they hurt you, you know, and to continue to rise above that negative, because you don't want to respond with negative, because then that shows that that catalyst didn't work for you. You took that catalyst and you ended up being worse at the end of it. So no matter what your trials or tribulations you're going through, try to come out on the other side better. Try to learn something. Try to have love throughout the whole process, because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, is love, and how we're able to, you know, as long as we have to be here on earth around other people, we're going to have problems with people. It's just part of life, you know. So it's really like I mentioned this with the NPCs. People say they're non-player characters. They're not just non-player characters. They're there, like if you're in a game, you've got these AI characters testing you, uh, you know, either depending on what kind of game you have. If it's like Pac-Man, you got the ghosts chasing you, you're trying to avoid them until you eat the little thing, and then you can go eat them or whatever. There's like the AI's there for a reason. And if these are non-player characters in this reality, you guys, they're there. They're like the secret shoppers of life. They're there to test you. So don't just feel like, it's not a person, don't worry about them. No, they're your test for the day. They're your trial to see if you can pass the test. You know, when my father passed away, he struggled with cancer for a long time, and on his headstone we put one of his sayings that he had towards the end. He says, "There's no testimony without a test." And that's really what we're looking at here. When you go through something traumatic, something tough, there's really no testimony at the end of it unless you make it through and you can come out the other side a victor. And so that's my message of hope for you guys. Now let me get to this clip I wanted to play. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Nathan Sanders. Now he actually talks about the upcoming podcast, but I found this to be super interesting because he's talking about his views on the Mandela effect, which I totally agree with him. And there's one difference in our thinking, and that was that perhaps the powers that be in this realm or whatever, the elites or whatever, don't want us to see this, and some of the effects of people not seeing it are them doing things to keep us from seeing it. And that could totally be true. I'm not saying I think he's wrong. I just felt like the divine source causing this is actually causing certain people not to see it because they can't take it. They aren't tough enough. It would just be too, like I said, the whole changes seem to be benign, and if it's way too much for you, then you just won't see it, or you'll be able to blow it off or write it off as you know, your memory or whatever it was, because it took me a year, and I wouldn't have been ready a year earlier when I first was presented with it, but I didn't see it. So don't rush the process. If you have people that just don't seem to see it, they'll see it in due time. And I believe this whole Mandela effect is actually a catalyst to wake us up to what's really going on. So enough of me chatting. Here's Nathan Sanders.
And what I have discovered is there are only two things that the controllers of this construct, and I do believe it's a construct,
Okay.
are afraid of. And that is the Mandela effect, the alterations in our physical reality that people are witnessing, because it is a phenomenon. It is not a theory. It is something the person experiences themselves.
That's a really good point, because
you know,
and
it's like you can know 911,
Yeah.
9/11 was an inside job,
Right.
but you don't have that experience of it where you know it for sure. You weren't
Right.
there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is something that hits the person
immediately. Yeah.
So it is something you personally experience that makes you question the reality itself.
Yeah.
I feel that they want us in as many rabbit holes as they can get us, because then you're still locked into the construct, the illusion of this being a real place. And so between that, and I think the other thing they're threatened by is any awareness of the false flags or the hoaxes, the stage shootings, those
Right.
types, Sandy Hook,
Right.
that type of thing, that they tend to really censor. Because there it makes you question again the reality itself. I think they
Yeah.
would love to have you researching the Bilderbergs and all of this stuff, because you're never going to get anywhere.
Right. You can't.
And even if you do know the truth, what do you do about it?
Right.
You know, where where I believe it's like if this is, say, a dream like reality we're in, you know, you're having a dream, and you know that moment where something in the dream changes or is strange that makes you all of a sudden within the dream you become lucid and you realize, wait a minute, I'm in a dream, this isn't real. Maybe, you know, the dog walks in and he's got a little 3-piece suit on, and all of a sudden you realize, no, I'm dreaming.
Yeah. Or
and
just
as soon as that happens, you wake up.
Right.
You don't get to stay in the illusion much longer once you question it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Mandela Effect is.
Okay. Yeah.
My introduction to the Mandela Effect started on October 24, 2013.
Okay.
I was in my house in Atlanta. I had a near-death experience.
Okay.
I went into a series of seizures and died. During that time, during my near-death experience, I encountered a being who told me several things. The first thing he said was, the world you think you're living in is not the world you're living in. Second, everything you know is a lie. You've been deceived about everything. Suffering is an aberration. If you're suffering, you're in a very bad place. You have to find out the truth. I said, how will I know when I find the truth? He said, you'll stop suffering. Everyone will. And then the last thing he said was, that I'm open to share, was something is going to take place in 2 to 2.5 years that's going to cause a radical change in the consciousness of human beings. So for the next 2.5 years, I kept waiting for something, you know, and I would wonder, well, what is this that's going to happen? Is it going to be, you know, I didn't know, is a UFO going to land at the White House? You know, I was anticipating, is it going to be a miraculous event?
Right.
And then in August of 2015, a friend of mine contacted me on Facebook from Australia, and he said, you did some promo work on that show Sex and the City when you lived out in San Francisco, right? I said, yeah. He said, go on YouTube and type in Sex and the City and look at it now. And that's when I saw it was Sex and the City. And that was when I realized immediately, this is what he meant. They're changing the physical reality to wake people up. My, you know, what I've learned from the Mandela Effect, and basically the manipulation of it and the attempt by whoever is in control. It's like if you type in Mandela Effect on Wikipedia, there's no page for it. It's been removed. What it takes you, it reroutes you to confabulation. Which is misremembering, which is what X-Files focused on. So it literally looked like the people who wrote the episode are the same ones responsible for redirecting your typing in of Mandela Effect into Wikipedia to confabulation. They are absolutely terrified that people are going to realize the reality is changing. Because if we realize that, that's an escape hatch.
Right,
that's a door out of
like
here.
It changes the paradigm
it doesn't matter.
Of reality. Yeah.
It's like, say you're in a dream and there's a murder committed and you know who did it, and you sneak into their apartment, you get the evidence, and you're going to have the press conference and all of that, and you've got the smoking gun literally, and then all of a sudden you go to grab the smoking gun 5 minutes before the press, and it's a knife. And then all of a sudden you think, wait a minute, how can the gun become a knife? And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm dreaming. It doesn't, there was no murder.
Right.
I can just wake up now.
Yes.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the conspiracy you're involved in doesn't even matter because you can wake up and get out.
Right.
It's not real. So I think that's what we're looking at. And I look at these changes, I call it the cosmic hacker, who has the code to this reality, holographic or virtual or whatever it is, and is changing these things to awaken certain people to start that process. Because if you have the codes to that, say, virtual world, you can change anything because it's all code anyway.
Right.
So I see it as sort of a benevolent cosmic hacker who is trying to awaken us to the fact that this isn't what we thought it was. And there's no reason to continue to suffer this way.
Right. Right. So, you know, you're... Okay.
It's simple.
Yeah.
Because you can never fix it within the construct.
Right.
We're not... They have all the money, all the power, all the weapons, all the armies.
So strange.
We're not going to do anything to them.
Yeah.
Grab their phone to look it up.
Okay.
So... and then so you have it right there, the justification, the explanation for why you just misremember it. You're just confabulating. If Wikipedia just told me that.
Right.
You see, it's a trap.
Yeah.
It's the guards around the palace.
That's why they didn't mention it so much in the episode.
They don't want people to know the exact examples.
Right.
So the whole thing of Mandela dying, and that
It's the
the
same
name
thing with the
Mandela
UFO
effect,
phenomenon.
that's all
Yeah.
a psyop anyway. They got
Right.
ahead of it, came up with a woman that would present the term. They attached it to a bogus claim of someone dying. That's not what this is. So they immediately got out ahead of it. You know, if you traced the original Mandela Effect website, it's registered down in Central America, the hotbed of CIA activity.
Oh man,
This woman,
Yeah,
Fiona
there's-
Broom, doesn't exist.
Right.
Go on her. She has one video. I mean, if you coined the Mandela Effect, you would be all over the internet. You would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
seminars. You would. She doesn't even exist. This was their attempt to give disinformation about what the effect was, knowing that people were starting to notice that whatever it is, whatever technology or witchcraft or spell casting they've been able to do to erase our memory or to implant a new memory of the new way it is,
How hard it wouldn't
is failing. I think
Right.
it's technology they're using.
Exactly.
People in the Mandela Effect community also often talk about, we see the download happen when we're talking to somebody about the effect. Like you'll say to your grandmother, Granny, you remember the lion shall lay down with the lamb, Isaiah 11:6. She'll say, yeah, the lion shall lay down with the lamb. And then you say, well, you know, it says wolf now. And then it's like this glaze happens. There's this
Right?
like download.
You hit me with
see
a
it-
couple
You see it in
during
the
the
eyes.
interview, yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, wolf. It was wolf. That's right,
Yeah.
wolf. It's like there's an update, like a program goes to work and literally updates that person. So I think the people who are seeing the effect are a virus in whatever this system is, this virtual
Because we're not
system.
supposed-
We're not
right.
taking the update.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're resisting it. So I think that is the resistance.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're afraid of. And that's why you can't even type it into Wikipedia and find it.
Right. It's not even. Yeah.
You know, because all the other stuff, the play itself doesn't matter when you wait. It's like Truman Show. Once
That's
you
what I
realize
was gonna
this is
ask you about
fake,
before. Yeah.
yeah, it's like
yeah.
the Truman Show, I think.
Right. So let's get further into the Mandela effect, because that is really what's super interesting here. And there's basically two schools of thought on this right now, which is the one is parallel universes, and the other is more similar to your thinking on it, which is outside influence on a single reality.
Right. There are actually several theories about what could be causing it. X-Files, actually, which we talked about last week, they did present one of the theories that I think Fox Mulder in the episode mentioned, that it's parallel realities, an alternate reality or parallel universe.
And then there's bleeding between the two.
And then the merging of those
Yes,
timelines, those parallel realities, where you have two different realities merged into one, and that's why people are experiencing the alterations in the reality. Some people believe that this is CERN, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, that has somehow, in their search for the God particle, have busted
Altered the fabric of reality.
altered the fabric of reality. Many of the Christians who are concerned with the changes that are happening in their Bible believe that it is the Antichrist, setting the stage for the Antichrist's arrival on the scene, and that it is a quantum computer or D-wave computer, as they call it, fallen angel technology that is changing and altering their Bibles, which is biblical prophecy. The theory that I have, that I am most interested in, that I have in the last 2.5 years, pretty much I feel proven to myself is what's actually going on, is that we are in one reality, and that reality is being altered by a supernatural power. And that is why we're seeing the changes. That's why we have residual evidence. That's why we're seeing evidence that it was a certain way that we remember, like Lion and the Lamb. There are sermons where that was used in the sermon, the way that verse used to exist, not because that existed in a parallel reality, but because it has been altered purposely in our reality by a higher intelligence.
Right. Now, Jim,
Yes.
it's so weird how it hits you too. It's like the strangest feeling, and it's just very similar to deja vu and those things like that. Now, you were talking to me recently about this one example that you caught just in the past year.
Yes, this one is, to me, is fascinating. It's a little bit of a departure of the alterations that we've witnessed so far. Usually, all right, this is in particular, this is a song. It's the song from the 1967 Disney film, The Jungle Book. It's called The Bare Necessities.
Right.
And usually when a song changes, like a lot of people are familiar with the alteration, if they're following the Mandela Effect, of the Mamas and Papas song California Dreaming.
Okay.
The line used to be, stopped into a church along my way, got down on my knees and I began to pray. Mm-hmm. That altered to, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. Now, what happened with that alteration, all the published lyrics, sheet music, songbooks, record liner, all of those altered to that new reality. So that not only did the vocals that the Mamas and Papas are singing change, but so did the published lyrics.
Right.
In this case, that's not what has happened. The song, The Bare Necessities, there's a line about 20 seconds into the song where Phil Harris, the actor doing the voice of Bolo the bear, I think it's Bolo was his name, the bear, he sings, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home." Now, the published lyrics still say that, but when you watch the Disney movie now, or play the original soundtrack recording, he is clearly not singing that. No. What he is singing now is, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found of my big home." Which in the context of the song makes no sense. It's very jarring when you hear it now. Now, the remake of The Jungle Book with Bill Murray, they're singing it the way it originally was. The change hasn't happened there. It's only happened in the night, which 1967 is the year I was born, which I find that significant too for me.
Strange.
The personal sort of change.
Yeah.
And the reason we know it's changed recently is because on March 22nd of 2017, the song played on my Pandora Shuffle, The Bare Necessities. And I posted it on a Facebook page that I have, a group called Pandora's Music Box, where I receive messages, which I use music as a divination tool to receive messages from the higher power or higher intelligence. And this was one of the songs sent to me when I asked a specific question. I asked silently in my own mind. And it was a question basically about what should parents who have young children be telling them or teaching them. Yeah. And he played the song The Bare Necessity. So I posted it along with the lyrics. Jim and I talked about it at length at that time. Mm-hmm. And that song at that time had not altered. It still was Phil Harris singing, "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home." So we know, we have proof that that alteration has happened very recently within the last year.
Whoa.
And it's very powerful because the published lyrics do not reflect the change. He's clearly singing something, and this is how I know that this is not a parallel reality, because in no parallel reality would Disney approve that version of the song.
Exactly. Right.
It doesn't rhyme.
Yeah,
and that's a no-no at Disney. You rhyme everything. That's the world of Disney. Their songs rhyme. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense in the context of the song. No, the only way it makes sense is if you end the sentence after the new alteration. Right. "Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I could not be found." That is a profound spiritual message, and that's what I believe these changes are. They are a higher intelligence desperate to communicate with us, and he's doing it through the changes in our reality, which he himself is doing. It's not a random accidental shift of different realities. Now, what's interesting about X-Files is that is the theory that they did present to the millions of viewers who were watching it that Wednesday night.
But in a deceptive
way. Yeah. I believe the last thing they want us to do is to connect these changes with a being, with an actual intelligent, divine source, because then you're connecting to something outside this reality that has dominion over it.
And it alters the entire setup we have going here.
Yeah. Now you're getting somewhere, because what you're seeing is proof, evidence of a supernatural deity.
Right.
And I think that is what they're afraid of, that we are going to connect with whatever that intelligence is, that cosmic intelligence that actually has the power to alter our physical material reality. And see, because then the next step you take, and this is where they don't want us going, and what I'm about to say is very provocative, and I've heard no one else in the 2.5 years I've been studying Mandela Effect say this, and this to me is the key. The next leap I go is I look at who Phil Harris was, the actor whose line was altered.
Yeah.
He died in 1995 in his 90s. He's no longer alive.
Oh, wow.
So how does his vocal alter? I think what we're being shown is that the being who did the change has power over life and death.
I see.
I think we are being shown a preview of the resurrection of the dead.
Oh,
He's showing us that that is possible.
Right.
Because I can bring him back to re-record this scene. And we're seeing that with a lot of the people who have died, who are Mandela affected now. I'll give you another example. Billy Burke in The Wizard of Oz, who played Glinda the Good Witch, her line has altered now. Her line where she used to say, click your heels 3 times and say there's no place like home. Now she says, tap your heels 3 times and say there's no place like home. That was not the line.
No.
So how does a woman who died, I think Billy died in the 60s. She's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
How is her line? How is she resurrected?
That's not even a
to
thing,
redo?
right.
So see, that's the spiritual place. The controllers of this realm do not want us to go, because I do believe we are in an underworld type realm.
Okay.
And that these are, whether you want to call them aliens or demonic beings, I think it's the same thing. They obviously need us here in this realm. We are a resource for them in some way, either food or energetically. And this is the prison that we're in. And that, I believe, the alterations.
Perhaps we're an imagination farm.
Yeah, some sort of dreamlike reality. And this being is hacked into it to let us know we are not in a real solid reality, and that there is something outside of this construct we're in, and that death itself may be part of this illusion, that we may in fact be immortal beings, and that they have tricked us into thinking we die, because that's what we're afraid of. So when you have fear, you can control the subjects through the fear that they feel. You know. And so I screenshot the song, and then I have a record. So on March 22nd, I put, and I don't know if Ryan can bring it up, but I posted that song message. I asked a question about what should parents tell their children, or I forgot how I worded it. And he played The Bare Necessities. That's the song that played. So that's how I was able to document that it hasn't changed, because Jim and I both really listened to that song, and there were no changes. It said Phil Harris was singing, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. But what's interesting, when you look at the date, I posted it. The date he played that message was March 22nd. That brings us to 322, which is the skull and bones number.
Yeah.
So
that's nuts. Right
there, that's synchromysticism. It's looking deeply at everyday things and seeing something you may have missed. So you take 322, and what does that number, why do they use that number?
Yeah, why?
So this power that sent the message obviously wants me to look into that. So I started doing research on 322.
Which I'm sure there's a ton of information.
A ton of information. Yeah. One of the things that I found, which is one of the theories of why they use that number, is Genesis 3:22.
Okay.
And I don't know if I don't have it in front of me to read it, but maybe you could pop it up. It's a very interesting scripture in the Bible.
All right, the New International Version.
Yeah, you can just read that one.
And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What is that saying? So I believe that that song that I posted a year ago was for me today to realize the synchronicity connected to it, come in and share that with the audience, and let them see that verse, because who is us?
Right.
This is the supreme God talking.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is he referring to as let us? And he's talking about denying these beings immortality and to know the truth.
That's so crazy.
And is that why Skull and Bones uses that number as their secret code or their secret number? Because they're denying us the truth,
Right.
some information or secret knowledge that they possess.
You always commit to the con.
So you know, this is what synchromysticism is. It's guidance coming from a higher source that's intelligent, and I believe what it wants is to free us. That this is a bondage type situation, and that these stories, the Bible, all of the different ancient myths, they're pointing a way out.
It's so strange, like the whole, you know what I mean? You guys are gonna do your own show.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes,
gonna be?
we're very excited about it. Starting
Okay.
next week,
All right.
Sunday at 2:00.
All right.
We're going to premiere our new show with Herald Broadcasting. It's called Synchronicity, Mysticism, and the Mandela Effect.
Oh,
And
that's
we're
gonna
going
be
to
good.
explore these topics every Sunday at 2:00. If you want to watch the live broadcast, and then it'll be, of course, be loaded up on YouTube, so you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to have guests on from time to time, and we're going to really talk about everything under that umbrella of the Mandela Effect and the synchronicities, mysticism, and what these messages are telling, to explore that in a deeper way and not just get caught up in this changed or it didn't change.
Yeah, yeah.
But take, like we did today, take that one
The theory
change and
talk
really
more,
look at it, really
right.
delve deeply into that one change and what is it trying to say to us.
Yeah.
Because if something is taking the time and the trouble to do this, these are obviously important and we need to look at them.
Taking details to a logical conclusion is
Correct.
key in understanding the world around you.
Be Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Be Columbo. You know.
Yeah.
And that is all I was going to share of this particular two broadcasts, actually. They were a week apart, I believe, or within about a week of each other. Both links are in the description. I'm so excited about Nathan Sanders starting up this podcast about the Mandela Effect and other interesting topics that definitely I'm into. So I will have Nathan on the show. He will probably, I think he said he was going to, now that he'll have the studio available to him, he'll be able to come on live from the Herald Broadcasting Studio. So definitely something I'm excited to experience. This Sunday is his first one at 2:00. I did miss the time, so I guess the time zone, I should say. I'll have to look more into that. Probably can go to the Herald Broadcasting website or Twitter account and find out that way. But at any rate, a big congratulations to Nathan Sanders for these things. He's definitely got interesting things to discuss, and I'm excited to have him on the show. I'm glad, I'm always happy when I find people that are able to look at this as a wake-up call, and with his supernatural experience with having the near-death experience and talking with this higher being, and that whole story in and of itself is awesome, because he had, when he first wondered if it was real, he had the song play on the radio that discussed like a town he was living in. It was just, it didn't happen through the Pandora's music box like the other one. So yeah, I can't wait to have him on to discuss that whole thing. Been talking about him for a while, but it used to be I just could send you to his Facebook page. So definitely happy to do that. I want to shout out to everybody. It looks like we got 57 people in here right now. Love and light to each and every one of you. Pat on the back 444 said that they're glad that I mentioned those were two different broadcasts. They thought the date changed. You just never know these days, man. It's like gosh, you just question everything. But that's sort of what's brought me back into the moment of noticing the clouds looking like lions and lambs, and noticing the song on the radio was actually speaking to the thoughts that were in my mind, and to even before the Mandela effect, I wouldn't have probably even given Nathan Sanders the time of day with what he said. I probably wouldn't even have taken it seriously enough to even give it enough time to check it out and be amazed by what was happening. So it's definitely been a wake up call for me, you guys. Just I now when somebody shares something with me, I don't doubt it right off the bat. I look into it because just about anything can happen when reality is changing right before our very eyes, right? I mean, you can't just discount anything at this point. I mean, you might check it out and find it's fake, but when you realize everything you thought was real before is fake, you'd be silly not to take a moment and look into this stuff. And before that, before the whole Mandela effect happened, I realized about false flags and government corruption and the whole monetary system and the chemtrails and all of that. I mean, I was already awake to those things, but I wasn't awake to the sci-fi reality I've awoken to, and and I know I'm not alone, and I can see this as a divine gathering when I see all of you in here sharing all this love. It's like all these light warriors are coming together, sharing their experience, and we might be alone in our household or in our town, but we're certainly not alone as a community here, unless you know you guys aren't real or something. But you seem pretty real to me. I'm just kidding. What's his name? Nathan from Lift the Veil said that once in one of his broadcasts. I don't know if you guys are even real. You know, I don't see any bots in here. I'm pretty sure everyone in here right now is real. So shout out to each and every one of you guys. I think we have some exciting times on the way. A lot of love and light to each and every one of you. I'm going to call it quits on this one. I'll hop into the chat for a few minutes, but doing this multi-stream, I'm not sure if it's going to end it. The last couple times it just ended I wasn't able to chat anymore, and I thought everyone just left. But yeah, we all have roles to play, and I too am enjoying the ride. Zark, One Affected, Dustin, all of you guys, I really appreciate you hopping in here. And until next time, have a good one.